All right. So what we are looking at here is on-the-go time, also referred to as OTG-Time, which is a web application that we use to enter our time into our bookkeeping system, from where it will get billed to clients, or it will get used on reports just to report on our time usage. The URL to get into the site, you cannot see it on my screen, is time.coop.co.za. I will include that in the documentation for this course. So I'm just going to do a very quick overview of how to do a time entry, and then so this video is simply how to create a quick time entry using on-the-go time. I'm then going to go and just talk a little bit further about the various fields. So first of all, when we go into the site, you can see that we will land on today's date by default. So the transaction date is populated for me with today's date, which I can go and edit by clicking on the calendar, which will pop up a calendar, and I can go and select a different date, but I'm going to stick to today's date. Then I need to enter the duration of the time entry that I want to capture. I have various ways of doing this. I can either enter it via the keyboard, or I can pick it using a clock, so to speak. It's not really a clock. From 1 to 9 are the hours that I can select, and then you will see that the minutes are broken down into 6-minute increments. The reason for this is that it is standard practice for law firms to bill their time in 6-minute increments. So in other words, an hour gets broken down into 10 sections of 6 minutes each. So if I want to bill 1.2 hours, that would be 1 hour and 12 minutes. 1.3 would be 1 hour and 18 minutes, and so forth. All right. We are not a law firm, so you are not required to do this. You can actually, I'm going to click on clear, or on done rather, to take that away. And you can enter, let's say I want to enter 1.5 hour. I can put in 1:30, which will give me 1 hour 30 minutes, and I can press enter on my keyboard. This will enter 1.5 hours for me. The timekeeper will automatically populate with your name when you access the system. We then need to select our client and matter, and we can just start typing. When you click anywhere in the field, a pop-up or a list box will appear. But you don't have to scroll up and down using the scroll button on the right-hand side. You can simply start typing the beginning of either the client or the matter name. So let's say I'm doing work on werksmans or worksmans. I can start typing WER, and you can see that the system finds all the projects where werksmans or worksmans is our client, and I can go and select the correct matter or the project that I actually want to create this time entry for. The next item that I need to populate is the actual action that I performed. So what am I, why am I recording this time? What action did I execute to actually warrant a time entry? So by default for Coop, our default action will always be consultation stroke support, because that's what we use mostly. We are a consulting firm and we do a lot of support. But when you click anywhere inside that field, once again, you will get a list of options that appears. So let's say I did some research on this project, which is actually not billable, but I want to record the time. That is the option that I will select. The project field is optional, and we only use that in special instances. The default currency will be South African rands, and then this bottom section says calculate WIP amount. WIP stands for work in process or work in progress. So that is where all our time entries end up. When we create a time entry that is posted into the system, it ends up in what is called WIP. From WIP, it will then be billed to a client, or we will use it to create reports. So when this box is ticked by default to calculate the WIP amount. So depending on the hourly rate that is in the system for you, the system will multiply that by the duration of the time. So let's say your hourly rate is 100 Rand. The system will then automatically calculate 100 times 1.5, and that'll create a time entry of 150 Rand. So as long as we keep this ticked, the system will automatically calculate the finances and we don't have to worry about that. If we did a quote for a client and we said, I will perform this piece of work for you and I'm going to charge you a flat rate of, let's say, 5,000 Rand, then we need to override this automatic calculation, because then we will say that we want to only charge one. So I'm going to click on clear and I'm going to say 1. Done. So now there's 1 hour, because then we only charge 1 unit. Actually, when we charge a flat rate, it becomes 1 unit at 5,000 Rand. Let's call it that for interest's sake. You can, of course, also record your time for that time that you spent so that we can see whether it was actually profitable. But let's say this is now, I want to use the flat rate for this. Let's make this consultation support. That would make more sense. All right. So now what I need to do is I need to untick the calculate WIP amount box, and now I can go and put in my actual WIP amount. So I want the system to charge this out at 5,000 Rand. This will be, because it's South African Rand, there's always VAT involved. So the WIP amount will be the amount before VAT. And I can press tab on my keyboard, and you can see that the system will now use 1 hour times 5,000, which will give us 5,000 Rand. And then of course we need to put in a narrative. So here we can say execution of SQL development as per quote number dated to November 2020, or whatever I want to put in for my narrative. All right. The next thing that I can now do is at the top right hand side of the screen, you will see there are 2 buttons that are active. The one is save, the other one is submit. If I click on save, this will not create an entry that is ready to go into WIP yet. If I save it, I can always retrieve it later and make some changes to it. Let's say I'm not quite happy with it yet and I need to renegotiate a rate or something and come and finish it later. Then I will save the entry and it will go nowhere. If I submit it, it will automatically go into a status of released. Can you see my entry that was just here has now moved over to the left hand side, and you can see there's 1 hour, there's my description, execution of SQL development, blah blah blah, for Worksmans. Alright, and can you see it automatically has a status of released. Alright, whenever we have a status of released, overnight the system will post it into WIP for us, and from there the accountants can access it to bill it out or to use in the time reporting. Alright, so let's say I want to edit this entry now. I'm going to click on it and it brings it back into the right hand side of the screen for me. I can now make edits. Let's say I realized that it was for the wrong client. I actually didn't want to, I wasn't working on Worksmans. It was actually internal. Alright, and I want to calculate the WIP amount, and it was just 1 hour. So now I can do all of that, and then I can submit it again. And now it's made the changes for me. As long as I'm in a status of released, I will be able to make changes to my time entry right here in on-the-go time. Let's say I realize that this is just a fake entry that I did for the video. I can go and delete it. So I can click on delete. I could also, alright, let me delete it. The system prompts me to make sure I want to really delete this, and I can say yes, please delete it. And now you can see the entry is sitting there. It was there with the status of D and a black triangle for a couple of seconds, and then it disappeared. It is now out of the system. It will never end up in WIP. Let's say I do a daily meeting and I don't want to type the same thing every day, which I do. Alright, so I do a daily catch-up meeting with Yaku. So I can select this entry and I can say duplicate. So when I click on duplicate, it creates another entry like that for me, except it doesn't populate the duration, but the transaction date is there. But obviously I would want to go and change if it's a daily thing. If it's the same thing that I did at 2 different times on the same day, then the same date would probably work for me. But let's say I never created my time entry for yesterday for my daily catch-up with Yaku. I can just go and select the calendar from the right-hand side of the screen, and I can select yesterday's date. And now I can make the duration. Let's say it was 24 minutes. I can click on done. And you can see that the rest of it is already there. I don't need to go and search for my client and project again. I don't need to search for the action. Non-billable meetings is already in there. And my narrative is already in there. And that's normally the thing that takes up the most time, is typing out all these narratives. So when I'm happy with that, I could submit that one. Alright, I actually did create one yesterday, so I'm just going to delete that. So I just wanted to show you that it's very easy to create duplicates from existing entries, and then you don't have to sit and enter everything at the same time. Alright.